Bindrunes have existed for as long as runes have existed, probably. So what are they? What do you use them for? How are they used? Are they magic? Are they secret runes? Or how many kinds are there? Well, with this episode I hope to show you everything you need to know about Bindrunes. The most common way to use Bindrunes, as it seems, is to use some kind of spell correction. If you miss a rune, miss out, forget a rune, then combine it with another existing rune. We can see an example of that in this, in the famous Rök runestone. You know, the big one with a very long text on it. In this example here, we have the name Radulf, and whoever carved it seems to have forgotten the rune A, so he combined it with the rune he could combine it with. So so you have the R and the, and there you have the A. So a spell correction. They can also be used for saving space. We don't really know if they made the lines first or the runes first and then the lines surrounding the runes, but a lot of things speak for the lines being made first. And then you have a limited space. So to fit your text in that space, you can save space by combining runes, as he has done here. I just assume it's a he. Don't hate me. If, however, a rune is forgotten and there's no rune to bind it with, you can put it in where it fits. And it seems a bit out of place, but it's there. It doesn't look good. So this looks better. And maybe a bit mystic or cryptic. It could also be used, of course, for making a text harder to read. But I doubt there is any kind of magic intended in examples like this, and this is the most common example. Spell correction, or just adding a forgotten rune because they just simply forgot to put in all the runes. It happens. Another way to use Bindrunes is to use them in a kind of cipher, I guess you could say. This kind of cipher, or this kind of Bindrune, is called the same stave rune. And that is, of course, self-explanatory. All the runes use the same main stave. So if we look at this word here, which is the same as this thing here, you have the B, R, U, the U, R, S, I, N. Well, that's an A, but misspelling. Or maybe not. Maybe dialect, accent, maybe, who knows. But that cryptic piece of sign makes the word brodersin or brodersia, depending on if it's correct or not. So that looks a bit cryptic, hard to read maybe. This way of same stave runes can be used in several ways. Usually we see them with this kind of alternating right, left, right, left, right, left. And they can also be used on only one side, of course. It's the same thing. It's a matter of design, I guess. And here you can also see the way to add an I rune on a bind rune. Usually this is the main stave, which is the same direction as the I rune goes, but you can't do that because it disappears. So we put it here instead. So you can absolutely use an I rune on a bind rune, even if many people say that you can't, but they probably don't know much about runes then, do they? And the A and the N rune is very often confused. And if that has to do with the writer's skills for spelling or just confused signs, we have no way to know, of course. But if we look at the rest of the text, all the runes are in the supposed place with the A and the N. It's only in this word it's an A instead of an N. So if this was intentional or not, we don't know. But that's how they look. Another way to use one of those same stave runes is to make them fit in the decoration of the stone. So the text here goes 1, 2, 3, and 4, left to right, down to up, and then you have the bind rune up here, which I have made more clear here. And this says you have the U, R, Thor, U, I, K, I, Wiki, R, U, N, A, R, runar, Thor, Vigi, runar. So Thor consecrate the runes. And this, as you see, is another way to implement the I rune, which you absolutely can do. You just have to put them outside the main stave, and that's perfectly okay. And maybe this wasn't supposed to be seen by everyone, so they fit it into the decoration of the stone. As you can see up here, the stone's broken here, but you have this kind of decoration, and this could, for those who could not read it, who didn't know what it said or how to, weren't that good at reading runes maybe, this could easily fit into the decoration and become invisible. So someone put a stone after Oskil, his brother, that became dead at Gotland. That's what everyone could see and read, and then for those initiated maybe could also see that Thor, Vigi, runar, that this was a pagan stone, not a Christian stone. So there's no magic intended here either, just a way to write maybe a secret text line or a hidden text or something. And I will come into ways to hide and disguise text on runestones in a later episode, but this is a perfect example of it. Here they did not confuse the N and the A. That's perfectly correct. So same stave runes like these are hardly hard to read. They are pretty much easy to read if you know what you're looking for. In a cipher, you usually need some kind of key to unlock the cipher, to know how to read it and where to start and where to end. We say that too on some stones that have they include the key in the cipher, and you have to know what to look for to find it. But when you find the key, you can unlock the cipher, and it's easy to read. Ciphers are useless without keys, if you didn't know. But this is not a cipher. This is very easy to read. But if you weren't that good at reading runes, it could easily look like decoration on the stone. Intentional or unintentional, but no magic intended. So, yet another way to write these same stave rune is known as a cross cipher. Because it looks like a cross, like an X or a cross, depending on what you want to see. And these are a bit harder to read because, again, there's no key. On this one there actually is a key, but you have to know where to start and where to end and what direction to read it, because it's not always obvious. On this stone, if we read the main text, we see we have the dividers between the words. So one way to find this key is to look for a divider, which we have here. And the text then, we have the divider and text to the right. So we look for the divider and the text to the right. And hiu spiku. Pretty easy. But it's not really easy, because on a cross cipher you only have 4 arms to write runes on. And if you write more than 4 runes, then you have a bit of trouble. So we have the first rune, the H, I, U are outside. And then you have this weird backwards S, which doesn't seem to be used. These are the S, the other direction. We have this sign. And so there is one more key to look for a weird S. Then you have the B. Then this is probably an I on one of the cross arms. Then you have a K, and then you have the U. So he u speak u, change direction there. That's a bit hard to read if you don't put some effort into it. And how can we say that this is an I and this is a K? You know, they look basically the same. Well, this line is straight and this line is curved. And on a K rune, the line is curved. So this is an educated guess that turned out to be right, because it's readable. That's why we think it's right, because it's readable. So there are other bind runes, as you can see. So we have this A-the there, and we have this A-t here. So ad and at. So bind runes are used in this, not to save space this time, because you have lots of space here and inside the stone. Usually you can see the text going around this and then continue on the inside somewhere. But the one who made this stone decided to take the last word from here and put it in this weird little cross cipher. And this could have a couple of reasons. If we go from bind runes to interpreting the stone, maybe it wasn't okay or allowed to raise a stone like this for a thrall or a slave, whatever you prefer to use. So they hid it. The thrall spinka became a hidden word, probably intentionally, because rune stones are to 90% or more. Rune stones are legal documents telling who wrote a stone after who and what kind of relations they had. And this was for the Odal rights for the land. This is a very old, possibly the oldest law we know of, that land belongs to a bloodline forever and ever, as long as you can prove relations. And that's what most of these stones are for, proving that I, the father, made this stone after my son and his brother helped, and his brother's name was this, so that brother could claim the land. And someone who could prove that they were the sons of that brother could also claim the land. So it's all about claiming land and proving bloodlines. That's what most runestones are for. But this, no one had any claims here. This was a thrall, and they couldn't claim land because they didn't own land. I will go through the Odal law in another coming episode. Don't worry, I will come there. I will get to it sooner or later. So probably in this stone they hid the message for who it was for. And another possibility is by making these cross ciphers, they made the stone look kind of Christian in a time where both pagans and Christians raised stones. Possibly it wasn't allowed for pagans or heathens to make stones, or they wanted to hide it in some way, so they made them look Christian. It's a big possibility, actually. But that's also another topic for another episode. Lots of episodes coming. So if you find the starting marker and the reading direction and try to fit in the extra signs outside, it's a bit harder, a bit difficult, but it's readable. Not magic, however. No magic or mystery intended here. And there were absolutely conflicts between heathens and Christians over a kind of long period of time. So even if some people say that it wasn't, but it was. Yeah, of course there were. But let's continue on our journey. This is another one of these cross ciphers. And here we come to a bit of a complication, because when you combine runes, it's not always obvious what runes are used. And that could be problematic for many reasons, depending on the skill of the carver, of course. This cross cipher can be read two ways, because it isn't fully clear what runes are used or intended. One way, as we saw before, Thor consecrated these runes. This can also be read in the same way, like Seidi Thor, also meaning Thor consecrate. And here we can see the S, the I, the U, R. So Seidi Thor. But it can also be read as Swediodr, or Sweden. Then we can see the S, the I, the an I again, a U, the U, R. So it's not perfectly clear what is actually intended here. But the first thing that comes to mind is that, oh, he wasn't very good at doing it, so he did it weird, so it's hard to read. It could also be the complete opposite, that he was very smart. So he combined two words in a bind rune. So maybe Seidi Thor Swediodr, maybe. So Thor consecrates Sweden, or something, however you want to save, whatever. Could be. So the text says, Santar reiste stein efter Joar, Frantasin, Inke Fudersuns Njallari, which you can read here in understandable language. Nothing very explicit about that. Someone raised a stone after someone who was his friend, and no one has a better son. So here we have that heritage marker again. But there's nothing religious about it until you come to this weird little sign here, where it could be made to Thor or Sweden. It is found in a part of Sweden called Sörmland, or Södermanland, which was a part of the Svea tribe. Two main tribes of Sweden was the Geats and the Sveoni, or the Svea. So Sörmland is a part of the Svea area. So that's probably what that's the tribe that the whole country has its name after. So maybe it was intentional to make it into readable as two words. We don't know that. So yeah, that's that about that. When writing runic ciphers or Bindrunes like this, there's only so many ways you can write runes before they become something else. So for example, a U and R are very similar on many stones. Sometimes impossible to see which one is supposed to be the correct one. So there's a bit of guesswork going on there. And some runes, if we use the younger Fudark as they have on this stone, an R, as we see there, if you turn that upside down, it becomes an M. So you have to have all of that in mind when you write runes in a circle like this, so you don't write them upside down unintentionally, because then it's unreadable. So yeah, a bit of skill goes into that little process. So those are the kind of Bindrunes that we have, quite a few of actually. But then we come to the modern Bindrune, the one we all love so much, of course. Thank you, TikTok. So this is nonsense. This is not old, this is new, modern. Most of them, this is just an example of the most common ones. Most of these kind of Bindrunes were invented in the 19th century. And they are not old, and they are not logic. These are combined runes in several ways. And this way of combining runes is to take not one, but two or more runes, combine them, and use those runes for their value. The problem is that if you're supposed to bind the runes together and use their internal individual value, you have to know which runes were intended. Because if you, for example, write an R, like this one, in this sign alone, you have an L, you have a W, a K, and a U. So you have the L, you have the W, you have the U, and the K of the C. So which ones are intended? So these are not what I would call Bindrunes as such. These are more logos or logotypes, because they don't work the way it's intended. And another problem with these is that you have to know what rune row you're using. Is it the Elder runes, the Younger runes, or the Anglo-Saxon runes, or the medieval runes, or what runes are you using? Mostly in these kind of runes they use the Elder Fudark because they have the most signs to choose from. But they also use the meanings of the runes from the Anglo-Saxon rune poem, which these runes aren't made for. The Anglo-Saxon runes are other runes, and these are the Elder Germanic or Scandinavian runes. So it's not the same thing. But who cares about that when you want to make clicks and likes? But anyway, a common bind rune is or a common thing to, you have to have messages in all of these ridiculous runes. So love, a good word, of course. It's nice and all. But the problem is that when you take the L and the O and the V and the E, you also get all of these unintentional runes together with them in this sign. And as this is used as a kind of a logotype, you can't tell which runes are intended. And when love is a word in English, of course, not Scandinavian or Norse. So you have the L for water or leak, probably water, I would guess, maybe leak, who knows. You have the O for the Odal rites, the Odal rune. The Wunjo is for luck or happiness, and the E is for the horse. So you try to figure out what they mean by that. Makes no sense whatsoever. Maybe there's some kind of intention. It's mostly ridiculous, but if you take, for example, the Odal rune, for example, as I talked about before, it stands for heritage by blood. And is that something you want to connect with love? Heritage by blood. This, of course, is intended for land ownership. This is still a used word in Scandinavia today, in Odal jord in Swedish. But in Sweden and Denmark, since the mid-19th century, 1860 something, these laws are invalid and replaced by other laws. There is, however, as far as I know, still something in Norway called Odalsrett, which is the same thing, of course, that is still active. And just to mention it, the Odal laws was the hardest thing for the church to overcome, because they could never get rid of it. They tried for hundreds of years to get rid of these Odal rights, but they never could. Because in Scandinavia, the Germanics didn't make their laws based on religion. They made their laws based on logic and the good for society. So when they changed religion, they didn't change the laws. So that was a problem for them. And what does the Odalrett or Odal laws mean? That means that every living blood-related person has these rights to this thing that is covered by this law. So if you, for example, have the meaning of the Odal rune in the word love, that would mean that if any one of this loving couple dies, their blood relatives have the same right as the one who died. And that sounds a bit scary if you think about it. I wouldn't want that connected to love, marriage or something like that. Yeah, but anyway, that's what they do. Christian weddings have this in some smaller way with the best man system and the bridesmaid system. The best man and the bridesmaid are supposed to take the place of the bride or the groom if one of them dies. They are to be replaced by the best man. That's why it's called the best man. And of course no one lives by this anymore because it's only a tradition that people use, and they probably don't even know what it means. But if we're going to use the original meanings of traditions or symbols or things like that, you should live by it, or it's pointless, basically. But with the Odal rune itself, you get the Ing rune, that is representative of Frey, means the Lord or the man in a universal context. You get the gift, the Gibu, and the Kenas rune, that means excruciating pain, death, boils, cancer, wounds. Not a very nice one. And how am I supposed to know in one of these Bindrunes that this rune isn't included? So what they did here was to make it a bit shorter. The supposed love rune is now a Wunyo rune and a Gibu rune, meaning happiness and gift. And that's supposed to be love for some reason. You still get all of these unintentional runes, even if you short it down to 2 signs like that. And you can also get an unintentional rune from another rune alphabet, another Fudark. These are from the elder Fudark and this is from the younger Fudark. So is that intentional? Unintentional? Who knows? So this is not a way to make a bind rune, because it makes no sense. I can find all of these runes in this sign. So how am I supposed to know which one is intended? I can't, of course. That's why it's ridiculous. So if we instead look at how a bind rune should be used, the way it's supposed to be used, we can go to a stone like this. This is a stone from 1449, because the text says it is. 1 year less than 50 years had passed since God's birth, blah, blah, blah. 1400 years and 1 year less than 50 years, so 1449 there. So it's easy to date. It's a pretty Christian stone, that's not hard to see. Aesthetically, you have the border with all the runes in it, but you have many words and supposed to fit in that border. They didn't manage to do that because they have the rest of the text is in here, so even if they used a ton of bind runes, it still wasn't enough. So here you see in the different colors are the bind runes. Also in the translation here, you see all the bind runes. And this is how it's supposed to be used. The text on the Latin stones are way longer than the old Norse stones. So using Bindrunes is a very good way to make the text shorter, of course. And if we take a look at the runes themselves, you have the AU, you have the AUN, so 3 runes combined, AF, OF, AD, TR, ON, AN, and AL. And you can see in some of the words from this stone, the name Simon, written together, S-I-M-O-N. You have the S-I-M-O-N in the bind rune, and the I-M also as a bind rune, interestingly enough. Is of the H-U-N-T-R-A-D-A-R, so hundradar. And this is a very interesting bind rune too, the U and the R, like in Fjorton. F-I-U-R-T-A-N. And if you look closely, you can see that the A and the N, these are of course a short wig variation of the runes. The A and the N should be written like this, not like this, because that's another rune. That means H. So they intentionally made the runes to not look like other runes, so there's no confusion. And this is how they are supposed to be used. And the bind runes, I can say, are extremely more common on medieval runestones than on older runestones. On older runestones you may have 1 or 2, maybe a couple more. Not that many, mostly combined only 2 runes, and as I said, mostly to correct the spelling. On medieval runestones you have way longer texts, so many more bind runes to save space and effort, should be said, because carving a text in stone has a bit of effort into it, and if you can save that and save on the work, then sure, why not. We can also see how bind runes could be used on older, well, it's still Christian, but yeah, I think it was. We don't really know if it is or not, but in here it's used for a name, the name Halv, and then you have the H, the A, and the L, and the F. This half is written on the side of the stone here, so you can see it here, so it's on the side of the stone. And I don't think there's any magic intended here either. It's only a way to write a name, a signature maybe. So that's interesting. So what about magic runes? Well, magic runes don't look like bind runes, and that's what it is. So one way to do it is a same stave rune like this with 3 F's on it, not alternating sides, because that will be FOF, which will be strange. So FFF, like that, or this very common symbol, also 3 F's on each side. None of these looks like any other rune in the Fudark, like in any other Fudarks. You also have the what we call windmill runes, or kvarnvingeruna in Swedish, because it looks like the winds on a windmill. So in this system, you have on the one side the number for the et, and on the other side the number of the rune in that et. So F would be 3, 1. The third et and the first rune would be an F. And the 3, 2 would be the third et, the second rune would be U, and so on. So these aren't Bindrunes. This system is more based on a numeric system of writing runes. So these are not Bindrunes. These are not Bindrunes, and these are not Bindrunes. And then you have the third kind, which are actually the only three newly or more modern made Bindrunes that we know of. Is the so-called Sunday runes, or the golden runes, that we find on runic calendars from the early medieval times. The oldest one, I think, is from the early 13th century that we have found. And they could be older, of course, but as they were made on wooden sticks mostly, or walking canes and things like that, we will probably not find that many older, because wood has a tendency to disappear with time. So these three runes are the Sunday runes. This is the Tvimother. It's two M runes combined. This is the Belgthor, which is two the runes, D runes, and the Arlauk, which is an A and an L rune. And these don't have any sound value. These are runes marking the Sunday runes on calendars. And runic calendars are perpetual calendars. They never end, so you can use them forever and ever. Many were made, and they were used for a very long time, until the Christians, of course, changed the calendar. But these are Bindrunes that are made as specific signs for specific things. But these runes are not Bindrunes. These runes are not Bindrunes. These are the top two ones here. Those are the kinds of magic runes. There are other examples with runes made like this, but they don't look like the ordinary runes. They are used or made specifically for a kind of a magic purpose. And this is more of a cipher rune. This is not a bind rune either. That's a cipher based on a numeric system of counting runes. And these are bind runes, but they don't have a sound value. So, and they are made for a very specific purpose. So, that's how you can tell the difference between those. And we actually still combine runes, combine letters today, so bind letters. Even if many may not think that we do, but we actually do. And one of the most common signs, or two of the most common signs, are very often used. You probably used it today, maybe. And those would be this sign, the and sign, which is of course the Latin word et combined, the et. So the et, Latin word et, means and. So that's a bind letter, very commonly used. We also have the z or the z, depending on which language you speak, which is actually an s and a t combined, because this letter is not, with a stroke on it, is not pronounced z, it is pronounced z. Very specifically, if you take the stroke off, it's a z. That's a big difference. I know many people don't know that, but that's what it's supposed to be. And the S is turned backwards, not to be confused with a regular S, and the stroke is of course the T. So that's a bind letter. And in older texts, this was kind of important actually, because the t sound that we got from German was used as a t sound. And if you take the stroke off, the Z sign without the stroke was very often pronounced as an R. So not to confuse those two, this stroke is very important, because it is two combined letters, the T and the S, and it's supposed to be pronounced ts. So if you read older texts, older medieval texts, you should look for the difference between this Z and the one without the stroke. They are two different letters. And the third one, of course, is W, which is two V's in some languages and two U's for some reason in English. You may not see this. You're so used to seeing the W as one single letter, but it is actually two letters combined, two V's or two U's, and the name is double V in Scandinavian and W in English. So, and it has the sound value not V or U, but rather O or something similar with the W. So these three are bind letters that we still use today, that you may not think about. And there you go. That's basically everything there is to know about Bindrunes. Are they magic? No, they're not. The modern so-called magic bind signs, as I would call them, we could summarize that with the letters B and S, write those together and see what that means. It's modern, it's new, it's not old, nothing to do with Norse or the runic systems of any kind. It's modern and new, and it's not magic, because they are ridiculous and can't be used, because you have to know what they are. And if you have to know what they are, then only the initiated can know what they mean, and that makes them useless for everyone else. So that's just stupid and ridiculous. Bindrunes are a way to combine letters to save space, to save effort and work, and to correct spelling. Maybe you can use it to make a text harder to read, more for the initiated. Runes, some runestones can be read in layers that can be read depending on how much you know about runes. We'll come to that in some other episode. And they can use to be hidden, like part of the decoration on a stone, or like hide what religion was intended in an age of conflict between religions, as Scandinavia was for a long time. So there are different uses for them, but magic is not one of them. Magic runes look different. They look intentionally magic, and the purpose for them is magic and nothing else. Not supposed to be read, they're supposed to be used as a sign or mark. So there you go, and we still use them today, even if we don't have as many. If you think about it, we have, at least in Scandinavian languages, we have the O, which is, the O is two A's, the Ä is an A and an E, and the is an O and an E, that have with time become umlauts with the second letter on top of the first letter. And that's another story. But you could maybe call those bind letters too. Especially in Danish and Norwegian, you still have the combined A and E sign for Ä. So there you go. That's all you need to know about Bindrunes. If you know something I have forgotten or something like that, you know where the comment section is. So yeah, that's all. That's it for today. And thank you for watching, and have a good day. Bye bye.